The lies, lies, lies of the gaming industry must come to an end. And that's what we're seeing with Clair Obscur, a game that has come out from another French developer, from former Ubisoft executives that have broken away from the company for its overzealous corporatization and focusing on share price and profits, and started their own development studio, Sandfall Interactive Studios, with only 50 employees. And they did what was deemed impossible: make a AAA level game with lower overhead. And that's what people are saying right now. We have a contender for maybe Game of the Year coming from a small indie studio that did it at 75% of the cost of what a AAA game would be made for at a AAA developer. And I think this is a glaring statement that we're seeing be made in the video gaming industry today, where it's saying you don't really need the powers that a AAA studio gives you. You just need a resourceful group of people that are dedicated to producing a high quality product, and you can develop a game that is reaching that high quality standard. And I think that's what we're seeing with Clair Obscur. I keep calling it Clair Obscur, but it's Clair Obscur. And I found an engaging game that kind of harkened back to JRPGs from Japan's past, where you have this combat that's interesting, engaging, dynamic, a story that really pulls you in. And I think that is a thing that is troubling to a lot of video gaming studios right now, where a lot of studios have been lamenting the state of the gaming industry, saying that it's hard to sell games to gamers nowadays because they demand too much from these developers. And we heard this from Ubisoft, we heard this from Microsoft, saying it's very difficult to make a game that actually is pleasing to a large fan base. But that is simply just not the case, because we see consecutive successes from Japanese studios, from Chinese studios, and of course Korean studios that are making records of billions of dollars and attracting millions of players for these titles that very few people know about. We saw it with Monster Hunter Wilds, we saw it with Mecha Break, we saw it with Black Myth Wukong. We saw titles that had made so much money that came out of nowhere, that are just showing in the face of these AAA developers in the West that you can make games that are highly profitable in this current market. You just have to make a game for gamers. And that is what Clair Obscur is showing resoundingly right now, where it's a very small game. And like I said, 50 employees, and it's come out to stellar reviews, where everyone is heralding this game as a massive success and demonstration of actual resourcefulness in producing content nowadays. And I think that's the thing I love about this game itself. I played 2 hours of it, and it's so compelling, and it just harkens back to some old-fashioned developed games that were made by people passionate about games development. And I think that's the thing that we're seeing with these tiny developers, where they actually like producing content for gamers to play. And I think that's reflective with all the review scores. And of course, you can't really trust the review scores nowadays, because a lot of these reviewers are trapped by their constraints to the very corporate entities that are being promoted out there, like Ubisoft and Microsoft. And I think that is the thing that we see distinctively with Clair Obscur. It's not attached to these entities, but so overwhelmingly good that a lot of these people have to respect the quality of the game. And I think that's what we're seeing right now, happening right now. That's what we're seeing disrupt the entire industry, where you compare the sales for this small indie developer coming out with strong numbers in its first 24 hours, reaching over 71,000 players. I think it just saw it at 80,000 players on Friday, and this weekend it's probably going to double that much just by the word of mouth of people playing this game. This game is absolutely capturing the imagination of the audiences. This is during a time where the remaster of Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion just dropped out of nowhere. So who could tell what these numbers would have been without that distraction? But I think even with that distraction of another title, is doing amazing numbers, and it's selling so well that it's breaking records that we're seeing for companies outside of Ubisoft in France, because it is a French developer working on this game. You can compare it to some Ubisoft games that have come out within this past year time frame, and you see a stark difference from a studio with passion and a studio without passion, because Ubisoft, a quadruple A developer as they like to call themselves, do not have the passion in their games, and it's reflective on the Steam player count, because you can look at Skull and Bones, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Star Wars Outlaws, and the numbers reflect on the quality and the passion of the developers that produce the content. Because when you play some of these games coming from these flop factories like Ubisoft, you clearly feel that they're just trying to imitate the feel of a quality game, where Skull and Bones feels like an imitation of Black Flag, without the understanding of the gamer's wants and needs of high quality gameplay. Same thing with Assassin's Creed Shadows. It feels literally like a shadow of an Assassin's Creed game without any of the fun gameplay elements, and worse than anything, a droning storyline and annoying characters with terrible dialogue that just drag down the entire quality of the game. Star Wars Outlaws is the same thing, where it feels like just a cash grab for the Star Wars title itself without any of the qualities that make a game good for the game players. And I think that's the thing with corporatization of a lot of these AAA developers, where the passion is gone, the focus on the gamers is gone, and we get slop that is unable to please the fan base, and you get slop-like numbers that are bankrupt an entire company like Ubisoft, who had to sell themselves to Tencent, a Chinese developer, just to get out of the hole they dug with the failures that happened last year. And I think you compare this to indie titles with only 50 employees, making a title that is so successful that it's toppling these quadruple A titles that came out from Ubisoft, and it's just showing a stark difference between the mindsets and the effect they have on the product that you're putting out there. This game sold 500,000 copies within its first day, probably recouping a lot of development costs, because I don't think it costs beyond $50 million to make. So this game is already doing things that just are unheard of within the AAA game development space, where people are realizing you don't need 20,000 employees that make a AAA title. And that's what we're seeing with Ubisoft, where they're using 20,000 employees to actually develop some of these Assassin's Creed games when it's not actually needed. And you end up with a 2 hours end credits for Assassin's Creed Shadows for people that really don't need credit or even their salary or job to produce this type of game. And it's just showing resourcefulness is going to be at the key for the success of future franchises, and not lying about your product is going to be there too. Who remembers Assassin's Creed Shadows boasting that they had 2 million players? And I think that's the thing that I'm disliking about the current market of the video game industry, is kind of buying into the modern political propaganda mindset, where you just lie and lie about reality and hope everyone buys into that reality when it comes to voter season. And that is just not company development or a corporate environment. You can't just lie and lie to the consumer and hope they buy your product if it's objectively terrible already. And that's what we've been seeing with Assassin's Creed Shadows, where they kept lying that they sold 2 million copies when clearly they're just talking about people subscribed to their Ubisoft subscription service, and saying 2 million players may have glanced past the game, it may have looked at the description, or maybe started the game for 1 minute and just left. And I think that is the number that we're seeing right here with Ubisoft touting for Assassin's Creed Shadows, where it's not translating to actual profit for the company. And I think that is the thing that we keep seeing nowadays within the gaming industry, where people keep lying about the success of their product and hoping that lie covers up the failure so they can move on to the next project. And I think that is just the mindset that we see in politics nowadays, where it's about lying about your success, lying about your constituency, the people following you. They're lying about your opponents, saying everyone hates them, when in actuality they end up winning the entire election that you're going against them in. And I think that is the mindset that we see translated to the current video gaming market, where you just keep lying about the truth while you're going bankrupt. And I think that's what Ubisoft has been doing. And when you compare it to the real life developers that are making games cheaper and recouping everything in the first day of release, this is a more preferable option for a sustainable video gaming environment. And that's why I say no more lies. Actually make a quality game. Listen to the fans when they tell you your game is not actually good, and maybe you'll have a company that is able to survive the future of gaming. And I think that's the thing I want to see for the most part, because Clair Obscur is doing all the right things. It has the right character models and designs. That's the thing I like the most about it so far. And there's no hideous monstrosity looking women in the story at all. Every character is aesthetically pleasing, and I think that's the thing that is going to win over gamers instantly, where you just have something that is inviting to the eyes to look at. The art direction is amazing and beautiful. The characterization for a lot of the characters really pull you into the story, where you actually want to see the story through to the end. And of course, the combat is amazing, and I think that's the thing that is absent in the current market of gaming, where we're so obsessed with this uglification process, this representation of our personal modern day political ideals reflected back into the story that we're creating or the game that we're creating. And I think that is tearing down the video games that have been coming out, where it's just obscene to look at some of the games, even though some of them may be good, but I just don't want to look at the game. It's just annoying to even look at it. And I think that's the thing that we're seeing changing with a lot of these indie developers, where they have to survive. They can't lie and say they are successful unless they'll go bankrupt, and they have 50 employees depending on the success of the game. So you have to produce. I think that's what Clair Obscur represents now. It's a game that has to produce something of quality, and it's bringing in a whole new fan base and building up a new developer. And I love that about this current market in gaming. And I think that is the point of no more lying about the success of your game or what may bring success to your game. And I think that's what Clair Obscur is doing so well right now. It's bringing success to itself by making a game for gamers themselves. And I think that is the thing that I'm going to take away from this game. But hopefully you agree with me. What do you think about Clair Obscur? Expedition 33 just recently come out. I think it's reflecting on what the gamers actually want from their gameplay. And more than anything, the developers are gamers themselves, and we can see the passion spread throughout the property that they produce. And I think that's what's leading to the success of this game. But that's just my 2 cents on the situation. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think this game is absolutely wrong and you want more ugly combat and terrible games made by passionless studios. Maybe that is what you want. You tell me. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner. Catch you next time.